He is working very, very hard, and I think he's going to put it all together. So many things are happening, many good things. Threats to Europe and America, the Middle East, and other places are really calming down. It's a lot different than it was just 1 year ago. Just 1 year ago, the world was actually on fire. A lot of people didn't know it. And in Nigeria, we're annihilating terrorists who are killing Christians. We've hit them very hard. They've killed thousands and thousands of Christians. What's that all about? Much of this unprecedented success is possible because I rebuilt our military in my first term.
The announcement landed with a thud and then echoed with disbelief. Donald Trump declared the creation of a new international body called the Board of Peace, then announced, without irony, that he had the great honor of being selected as its chairman. The reveal was framed as a moment of destiny, yet the details made clear that the board was conceived, structured, and staffed under Trump's direction, leaving little doubt about who did the choosing. What followed was not a surge of diplomatic enthusiasm, but a wave of skepticism, mockery, and fatigue that quickly defined the story. From the outset, commentators seized on the spectacle of self-bestowed leadership. Trump's tone suggested surprise and humility, as if an independent global community had tapped him for the role. Critics found the posture hard to take seriously. In their view, the performance leaned heavily into self-congratulation, blurring the line between international diplomacy and personal branding. The image of a leader appearing shocked by his own appointment became a shorthand for what many described as a broader pattern: announcements designed to project grandeur while sidestepping the hard work of building genuine consensus. That skepticism only deepened when details of the launch emerged. Fewer than 20 countries signed on to the Board of Peace at its debut, a figure far below what supporters had hinted at beforehand. More striking than the low number was who was missing. There were no representatives from Western Europe, a region traditionally central to multilateral peace initiatives and closely aligned with U.S. foreign policy. The absence sent a clear signal that, whatever the board aspired to be, it was not yet commanding broad international confidence. Among the missing voices, one absence stood out sharply: Israel. Given Trump's recent and highly publicized pro-Israel actions, many had assumed Israeli participation was a given. Its decision not to join was widely interpreted as a diplomatic embarrassment and a warning sign about the board's perceived value. Observers noted that if even close allies were unwilling to lend their names at launch, persuading more skeptical nations down the line would be an uphill battle. The gap between expectations and reality became one of the story's most telling features. The list of participating countries did little to calm doubts. Reports indicated that members included Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Argentina, and Paraguay. While each has its own regional influence, the grouping raised immediate questions about balance, representation, and legitimacy. Critics argued that the roster looked less like a global coalition and more like a selective gathering shaped by transactional relationships. Without broader geographic and political diversity, the board's claim to speak for peace on a global scale rang hollow to many observers. The optics of the signing ceremony compounded the unease. Accounts from the room described a notably muted atmosphere, with applause so sparse it became a talking point. One detail circulated widely. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt appeared to be the lone enthusiastic clapper, her visible support standing out against a backdrop of polite stillness. For critics, the moment captured the mood perfectly, an event presented as historic but received with caution, discomfort, or indifference by those present. Attention soon turned to symbolism, starting with the Board of Peace logo. Almost immediately, comparisons were drawn to the emblem of the United Nations. The resemblance was hard to miss: a circular design, laurel-like elements, and a globe-inspired motif. Yet where the UN logo emphasizes the world as a whole, the Board of Peace version placed the United States at the center, specifically highlighting Florida. Rendered in gold and heavy with patriotic flair, the logo was widely mocked as tacky and derivative, an imitation that replaced global unity with overt American dominance. That symbolism struck a nerve because it reinforced a broader critique. Peace organizations, critics argued, succeed when they signal neutrality, shared responsibility, and collective purpose. By centering the United States so literally, the Board of Peace seemed to announce its priorities visually: American leadership first, global partnership second. To skeptics, the design choice was not accidental but revealing, underscoring the perception that the board was less about fostering cooperation and more about projecting influence and personal legacy. As the initial reaction settled, questions about longevity and impact took center stage. Commentators across the political spectrum expressed doubts that the Board of Peace would endure, let alone accomplish meaningful results. They pointed to the lack of institutional structure, the thin participation, and the absence of clear goals beyond symbolism. Without mechanisms for conflict resolution, enforcement, or sustained dialogue, the board risked becoming another headline-driven initiative that faded once public attention moved on. The skepticism also reflected a deeper frustration with what many see as performative governance. For critics, the Board of Peace was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern in which grand announcements substitute for substantive policy. The repeated emphasis on spectacle, titles, ceremonies, logos, felt disconnected from the complex realities of diplomacy and conflict resolution. Each new reveal seemed to demand attention while offering little reassurance that it would translate into tangible outcomes. Supporters of Trump, meanwhile, argued that unconventional approaches are often dismissed before they have a chance to prove themselves. They suggested that early mockery could give way to eventual success if the board managed to broker dialogue or reduce tensions in specific regions. Yet, even among sympathetic voices, there was an acknowledgement that credibility must be earned, not declared. In international affairs, symbolism opens doors, but sustained engagement and trust keep them open. The broader public reaction, however, leaned toward exhaustion. Social media and commentary reflected a weariness with political theater that feels detached from everyday concerns. For many, the Board of Peace became another example of how serious issues, war, diplomacy, global stability, are increasingly filtered through the lens of personal image and spectacle. The laughter and sarcasm masked a deeper unease about the state of governance and the erosion of shared standards for leadership. In the end, the story of the Board of Peace is less about one organization and more about the moment it represents. It highlights the tension between ambition and credibility, between symbolism and substance. It raises questions about how peace initiatives gain legitimacy and who gets to define them. And it underscores a growing public impatience with what is perceived as unserious governance at a time when global challenges demand focus and cooperation. Whether the Board of Peace quietly disappears or manages to reinvent itself remains to be seen. For now, it stands as a vivid snapshot of contemporary political absurdity, an initiative launched with grand claims, met with skepticism, and surrounded by a sense of disbelief that says as much about public mood as it does about the project itself. If you want to stay informed as this story and others like it continue to unfold, hit the subscribe button for more future uploads.